So the point of this video is, after reading so much of the comments and actually gauging of what people liked about Alien Covenant and what people hated about Alien Covenant, but also the overall look at this Prometheus prequel franchise to the 1979's Alien, what I have done is jotted down a dot point system of what I reckon the second movie in this franchise, the Prometheus sequel, should have been. This is gauged on what I thought the sequel logically would have been following Prometheus. Now, something I wanted to make very clear about my review, because people just think I'm just trashing this whole franchise in general, and people think I was just trashing Ridley Scott. All I care about is the continuity of linking up to the first Alien. I'm all about continuity, and if you're gonna do a prequel, all I want is for it to just make sense. I get that complete satisfaction when I see it connect, and I just don't feel like we're getting that proper connection by the time we get through this movie series and link up to Alien. It'll be like Prometheus 7 by the time that happens. Alright, let's get into this. I'm pretty sure that back in the day when Ridley Scott made Prometheus, he announced that the following movie was going to be called Paradise. This is a part of Prometheus, I can't even remember, where they say that the planet they're leaving after LV-223 will be Paradise, and it's the engineer's homeworld. That looks like how they were going to title this movie series. It would go Prometheus, and it's the name of the ship, but it's also got its Prometheus metaphors of the god giving the flame, that whole story. The following movie would be called Paradise. I'm both merging ideas of what the sequel should have been continuing Prometheus, but also still trying to put in the links that properly connected to Alien. Alright, so at the end of Prometheus, they awaken the engineer and Shaw is screaming to it, asking, what did we do wrong? What's that black goo stuff in the cargo hold? Why do you want to kill us? And she's very frustrated because she has these answers, the answers that the whole audience also had. Right at the end of the film, she goes, I'm going to meet my creators and I'm going to look them in the face and I'm going to get my answers, or something to that effect. Alien Covenant gives you no answers. David puts her in cryosleep and kills her and then kills the entire engineered planet. Getting the vibe that's what people hate the most about this sequel, is it literally gives you no answers in this film. And I don't care if by the time Alien Covenant comes out on Blu-ray and there's all these special features where it's it turns out the reason that all I care about is the movie. I don't care about special features, and I don't care about a viral marketing campaign that also puts in character development that should have been in the film. Alright, so Paradise, subtitle Prometheus 2, direct continuation. Whether it's 10 years later or whether it's just a few months later, going off of space travel, how long it would take, wherever this Paradise planet is. So you would have David and Shaw arriving on this planet. They see that it is paradise. There's temples, there's shrines, there's all this architecture that's reminiscent of ancient human beings, but also with a technology twist to everything. So you can have them crash land on the planet, and this whole expedition is being led by Shaw. She is the passionate one with the answers. We set her up in Prometheus, this is her story, and David is along for the ride, and you can hint that David has a change of heart and he doesn't want to follow in his father's footsteps of wanting to be one-on-one with your creator. And so you can have them land in the city. Even in Alien Covenant, there's an effective part where all the engineers see the donut ship flying in, they're all cheering. It's one of our lost comrades has come to find us. But then the ship lands and out of it comes Shaw and David. And all of them are confused, they're all baffled. What the hell is our creation doing in this ship? Where are our long lost engineer comrades? And so then you can have David break the ice by translating. They set that up well in Prometheus, that David could speak the language of these engineers. And so that David would be very pivotal in this first act of translating what the engineers say to Shaw. But you could also have the engineers greet Shaw and David with a bit of hostility. Maybe they all get captured and they get thrown into cells. What the hell are you doing here? David starts translating for Shaw. Shaw is demanding her answers, and maybe then the engineers can start feeling a bit of respect of the distance that she's gone to get questions and not pose any threat. She just wants her questions answered. Then we can start getting more used to the culture of the engineers, or our creators, as they're trying to set up. So you can have scenes where David's talking to the engineers and he's asking Shaw's questions. Her questions from Prometheus. Why do you hate us? What's this black goo stuff? Why do you want to kill us? And then David will be translating them. He's like, oh, so it turns out I'm Michael Fassbender and I play David. But the engineers in Prometheus, it turns out that they're actually terrorists. They're actually assholes. And they just wanted to kill human beings for no reason. Or a religious reason, probably that. Pretty much the vibes of the Act 1. Shaw will then forgive the engineers for the events in Prometheus 1, discovering there were a different segregation of engineers than the ones on the actual planet called Paradise. Another mystery that would have been great to be cleared up in this movie is what is the black goo? Now, the frustrating change with Alien Covenant is Ridley Scott changed his mind.
The engineers didn't make him, David made him, which I thought was far more interesting.
Something that could be simple. What I've gauged is a lot of people do not want the actual xenomorphs to be a creation of something, like an actual planned out design. What if they were just a species that just existed? And now something that could get us out of this black goo debacle is what if the actual xenomorphs were an ancient species that has long been extinct, but they were worshipped. They were the perfect organism. Once the actual xenomorphs, they don't have to breathe. They can live in both hot and cold environments. They are the ultimate weapon. They don't need anything to survive, really. They just need to be. However, once they've taken over a planet, then they sort of die out. With no more hosts, xenomorphs will probably just deteriorate over time, over lots of time, and it's just endless eggs everywhere with no host to actually impregnate with the embryo. So that's all you get from the alien species. They'll eventually die off when there are no more hosts. And they have all been extinct for a while. However, this black goo can be the engineer's sort of mineral that can extract DNA from fossils, but it's still like this coding thing where they need to crack it. The DNA of the xenomorphs are in this, but they need to actually engineer it to get the right DNA out of it, because it could probably just be anything, because xenomorphs crossbreed with so many things. Maybe the xenomorphs over time crossbred with space cobras, with giant tentacle octopus things, blue dolphins, but they are not the pure ones. And the pure ones are what the engineers used to worship. Or they are the purebred xenomorphs. And that would help explain the mural in Prometheus, where this thing looks just like the traditional alien and is some kind of artwork on the wall, which also goes against why David made the xenomorph in this new one all of a sudden, and saying that the engineers didn't make it, because this thing is the xenomorph as a bit of artwork before David even knew about it. So, whilst hanging out with the engineers and learning more about them, they could start showing David more of their science division, and then that explaining that that's what the black goo is. They're trying to extract the proper pure DNA of the xenomorphs out of it, but they just can't get there yet. David gets a look at it, and being an actual android, he can calculate everything about it, and he immediately figures out what they're missing, what they need, and he starts memorizing that, and he starts actually working on it himself, keeping things to himself. Where we now know the mysteries of the black goo, we now know what the engineer's intent is. This is where the plot goes awry. All of a sudden, the engineers will just turn weird on them. Shaw doesn't know why, because she doesn't speak their language, but all of a sudden the engineers get more hostile. They start pointing fingers at David. She doesn't know what the hell's going on. So then they flee. They try to get off the planet. They can't trust the engineers anymore, but they don't know why yet. So they hijack the donut ship they're on, and they start to fly off. Shaw can just be riddled with questions again, why are they angry at us all of a sudden? And then David can then have his big reveal. And he's like, hello, I'm David. Shaw, there's something I didn't tell you. I brought you here so that you can talk to the engineers. I wanted you to have your questions answered because you've been so gracious to me. When I got my head knocked off by one of them, you put me back together and you didn't have to. So I wanted you to get your questions answered. But now that you have, you're no longer useful to me. Guess what I did in the previous movie? I put a bit of black goo into your husband's drink, and then you had sex with him and gave birth to the squid that didn't make sense. But now I must continue and finish what I started. And so, in this ship that's raised up, David then, just like an Alien Covenant, I didn't actually mind this part, but it just needed to be more worthwhile, opens up the cargo hold and just dumps all the black goo all over the engineer city. And you can say that since he dumped every single vial, it takes over the whole planet. All of Paradise then becomes destroyed. And in an effort to stop David, Shaw can then start trying to fight him, but since he's a robot, he's too stronger, because they showed in Alien Covenant that he's like super strong and can do kung fu. But in Prometheus, he was so weak he got his head ripped off with ease, but whatever. This is the big shit moment in the whole film. David's now destroyed Paradise. He's wiped out all the engineers. While David is dumping the black goo all over the planet, wiping out all the engineers, destroying this planet, he grabs Shaw and shoves her into the cryo sleep against her will, and he like hits freeze and it closes on her, and she's like panicking, and then she goes to sleep. But then essentially a title card comes up saying like 5 months later or something. In this time, David has been perfecting the black goo, and he has been extracting the genuine xenomorph DNA. He is finishing what the engineers have started. Now, David then wakes up Shaw, and she's like all tied up, very reminiscent of when aliens cocoon people, which I know is not in the original Alien, it's in Aliens, but I don't care. All I care about is continuity. Connect it all, then I'll be happy. Shaw is like a scientific representation of being cocooned. She's not covered in slime or anything, but like she wakes up and she's strapped up basically. David has successfully grown a face hugger, but it's not in a traditional egg. I saw a few months ago that someone cloned like a sheep, or they kept they grew a sheep in like this medical sack that's like made of plastic, but it contains all the nutrients and liquids that it needed, and they didn't have to have an impregnated mother sheep at all. So it's like a face hugger in a medical sack that he's grown without an egg, because this is like, he picked out the genome of just the face hugger, he doesn't need the egg, but he's growing it in a laboratory himself. When she wakes up and she's like, holy shit, what have you done? What is that thing? How long have I been asleep for? Answer my questions. And then David can have his horrible reveal where he's like, so what I've done is I've successfully cloned the face hugger of this ancient alien species. Shaw, I wanted you to see it, and I wanted you to be proud of me, as I am proud of it. In the last movie, I infected you complicatedly, and you gave birth to the squid. But through that process, it put the final genome of DNA into your body. So I needed this facehugger to impregnate you to complete the cycle. The embryo that's just going to lay inside your body is going to create the xenomorph queen. And then we'll officially have the xenomorph back in the modern day world. End of the movie. Now that sets up David as being so fucking horrible. Like, all of Prometheus, you're getting invested in Shaw. She had the squid thing in her stomach. Didn't know what the hell that was about. And then she's the one with the proper questions for her creators, because Mr. Wayland, Guy Pearce Brosnan, didn't care about the answers. He just wanted to be immortal. But you end this film with David killing the lead character that we've all been so invested in, because that just shows how much he does not care. And so that's my quickly slapped together idea of what Paradise should have been. So the connections that we got from that is now the facehugger has laid the embryo of a xenomorph, and it all makes sense, and it's not all of a sudden. We get a proper explanation of what the xenomorph is, and then people can be happy because David didn't 100% create them. He was just finishing the cycle of recreating this ancient species, and it still gives the xenomorphs that mystery. They weren't like legitimately designed. That probably would have made people feel much better.